Okay, welcome back, Odyssey families. This is Josh the Behaviorist, and I'm going to be talking about prompting and fading today. Now, I made a video on prompting and fading, and probably mostly prompting, back in probably September of 2020, when I was doing a lot of shorter videos. So this is going to be a little bit longer one. This is something that we've talked about with some families, so I figured that a longer video with a little more detail and some examples actually probably be pretty helpful. So let's get into it. There we go. So prompts and prompting. So let me make sure I'm out of the way here. So prompting is when you provide help or cues to encourage your student to learn and perform a targeted skill. There is a prompt hierarchy that is used to fade the assistance we provide so the student becomes more independent. And we always want to move down the ladder toward independence. Now, you've probably already heard about prompting. We're going to kind of go through the prompting hierarchy first because it's just easier. But let's just get into it. This is the prompt hierarchy. This is one version of it. I'll talk about a limitation on the next slide about something that's missing. So some prompt hierarchy is a little bit different. This is the one I learned when I came into the field many moons ago. The thing to consider is the top is the most intrusive, and you always want to be moving down this. I reference it as a ladder. You want to move down the ladder towards the least intrusive, which is really at the end of the day, independence. So let's talk about each of these. Full physical or physical is hand over hand. You basically have your hand over their hand and you're performing the actions. Partial physical is you're guiding their hands. It's from the forearms or elbows. So you're not necessarily, you're moving from the hand on top of itself to the arm. And I actually have examples of these in a second, but let's talk about these real quick and then we'll do the examples. A model prompt is you demonstrate the action or the step. That works really well for some tasks because, I always use toothbrushing as the best example because you can stand next to them and show them, where to brush, how to brush. A gesture, which is pointing to the materials required for the next step or action. Pretty self-explanatory, but you're just gesturing to things. Again, you've gone from being hands-on to hands a little bit on to you're showing to you're just pointing to it. You're not even demonstrating what it is. So the gesture is just pointing to whatever you need or whatever the next step is. So if it's washing hands, it might be pointing to the soap, pointing to the water to turn it on or off, pointing to the towel to dry off hands. Positional. So you're positioning materials nearer to the student. It also might be setting it up too. A lot of times when we're doing, when we're trying to teach, especially in-home, when you're trying to teach adaptive living skills, some of those self-sufficiency sort of, daily hygiene tasks, toothbrushing, brushing hair, getting dressed, getting out new clothes. A lot of times we'll positionally prompt things, which is we'll set things up. A lot of times I would say for like getting dressed, if you're working just on that whole routine of them getting dressed, you might bring the clothes out for them, the fresh clothes out, the clean clothes out, and leave those out. So all they're doing is the actions of taking the dirty clothes off, putting on the new clothes. And then you can teach that later, but you're sort of bringing all those materials together, anything that you need to make it a little bit easier. So everything's in place. And then at some point you're going to remove it. So if it was I can see my kitchen from here. So if you can see, if you're doing a cooking task, you might bring out the materials that you need to make cookies or that you need to make a sandwich. So all they're doing is negotiating those pieces there. And then eventually you probably back off a little bit and they would have to go to retrieve it. If they're making a PB&J, they'd have to go get the peanut butter, get the knife, get the plate, get the bread, get the jelly, and get all of those things. But you might bring them together and positionally prompt. So you're basically just setting the stage for it. And then the last one is independence. They're done. They're not done, but you're done. You're not necessarily prompting. You might be around, just kind of checking in, depending on what the activity is, but they're independent. So let's get to the next one. So moving toward independence. So one of the things, and this, I keep on going back and forth. Again, I feel like a dinosaur in the field, so that things have changed. When I was taught way back when to never use vocal prompts, ever. It was bad. Get in trouble for that. But a vocal prompt is you're telling them what the next step is. I should read that part. So this isn't the same as the initial instruction. So if it's washing hands, you're still going to say, as the teacher, as the instructor, you're going to still say, time to wash your hands or wash your hands, please. That isn't a vocal prompt because that's telling them what they should be doing next. That's the whole task. A vocal prompt would be telling them, okay, dry your hands off, rub your hands together, get your soap, get your water. You're telling them each individual step. So that's what a vocal prompt is. Now, again, from when I came in the field, vocal prompts, you never do them, never use them. So some people feel that they're the most intrusive prompt, and I actually was looking on some research to see where it was, and I couldn't really find a set placement for vocal prompts in the hierarchy right now. I saw some people that it was somewhere middle of the pack. If we go back to the prompt hierarchy, I saw some people that had it around model and gesture. I've seen some people, I mean, back in the day, I was taught it was, it was beyond full physical, because you're there and you're adding something to the environment. It's definitely not at the bottom. So it's somewhere in that the higher level that is more intrusive. It's more intrusive than positional. It's more intrusive than gesture. I would say more intrusive than a model. So I would agree that it's somewhere above there. So it's in the most intrusive range. But you have to consider that, and the way I look at it and how I was taught to is you have to be present to deliver a vocal prompt. So, we're never going to get to independence if we're always there, kind of in your learner's ear saying, do this next step, keep going, keep going. So you have to consider that one. And so I didn't include it on ours. I think we all know what a vocal prompt is. You're telling them what it is. But it's just one of those things to consider. I also didn't include visual prompts. I kind of go back and forth on that. That might be an example of a visual schedule, might be a list of activities, there's a bunch of different things that it could be. I didn't include that in there as well, because again, there's some disagreement in the field where a visual prompt is. To me, in my own personal sort of opinion, not bound by any sort of book, I feel like I'm not worried about visual schedules, visual prompts, like something static, something to post on the wall. I know for my own child, I put a toothbrushing, little pictures of toothbrushing. I didn't mind that was up there. And I see that as independence, because it's just a reminder and I'm not there. It's not full independence, clearly, but I feel like that's much less invasive and intrusive than the vocal prompts, physical prompts, the model prompts, the gestures even. I sort of see it on that lower end. And your learner, it might be best for them to have a visual there. I always look at prompts as being something, there's an active prompt, there's something that we have to deliver, we have to be there. And then there's a sort of a passive prompts, like passive systems that are just there. And if they reference them, that's great. If they don't, then that's fine too, as long as they're moving toward independence. So I just want to address the visuals because I didn't include that in here. So let's look at what a full physical prompt. Now I chose this, I use my own daughter as the learner here. Very basic lesson, but I want to give an example of what these prompts might look like. So this is just a very general color ID. They're all, 5 pens in the field, different colors. Some of these I cut off the instruction, but it's more about what the prompt looks like. So let's look at a full physical prompt. So if you notice, hand over hand. I've got the hand right over. Oh, nope, come on. There we go. Hand over hand. I'm putting my hand over her hand and then perform the action. So that's about as invasive as you can get, intrusive as you can get. So if this was toothbrushing, if this was washing hands, if this was even using their AAC device where you have to maybe prompt them to do those steps. We'd love to just use model prompts where we're just showing things off, and we'll show that in a second. But we really want to make sure that we're using, that when you're doing a full physical, this is sort of early on, or this is a new skill. This is something they're not familiar with, or it's just a really complex step, a complex task. I would say full physical, most of the time, if you're ever going to teach your child or your learner to tie their shoes, you're probably going to have to start with full physical prompts, a lot of them, because you can't just model that. There's too many, it's too detailed. There's too much fine motor involved and visual and discriminating. But you're going to have to start somewhere. And this is where typically we start when we're teaching a new skill. So let's look at the next one. Okay, it worked. Now, partial physical. So this one, again, we're guiding it. We're not doing the hand over hand. So we're going from the hand over hand. Now the hand's moving, the prompting hand is moving down the arm. and my cursor is gone. There we go. Notice I just sort of grabbed the shoulder, grabbed the elbow and guided it. Again, it might not even be that much. It might be just 2 fingers on the elbow to kind of push it and just kind of give a little bit like, hey, this is the time that you respond. You gotta find your black pen. Again, we're moving down that ladder, and we'll have the ladder up and again, the hierarchy in a second here. Model prompt. Okay, this one, once I started putting this video together and I had all these video clips, this one isn't the best example because what I'm also doing here is I'm kind of gesturing at it. The task, the skill that I'm trying to model is the same as a gesture prompt. So these two next to are going to look the same. But what it is, if you can kind of think about this for different opportunities, different situations, is you're modeling it. You're saying, I think it was, maybe I said touch purple, and then I touched purple. So it's not the perfect one. I think one I mentioned earlier was brushing teeth. That's a really clean one because you can have a toothbrush. You can do, you can have your own toothbrush, toothpaste. The sink is going to be the same. You can be standing at the sink and using a lot of the same materials, but you'll have your own toothbrush and you'll model it. It could be for handwriting. That could be for AAC again. If you're using a communication device, you using it and showing them how you can communicate with them. And I'm getting into kind of a speech situation domain, but modeling that they can how to push the buttons to get through different folders and different things. There's all sorts of different situations where a model prompt would work. Unfortunately, the thing I chose, because it was just going to be the cleanest one to show, is actually makes the model prompt and the gesture prompt look virtually the same. So let's go to the gesture. It's going to be the same, slightly different, but it's basically the same. I'll be gesturing to that, so then she knows that that's the one I was looking for. Again, gesture, toothbrushing, toothbrushing, brushing hair, washing hands, getting dressed. You're just gesturing to the next step. Now, if it's getting dressed, you might just gesture to the new pant, the fresh pants, or the fresh socks, or the hat, or whatever the next item might be. If you're doing something a little more, physical, where you're walking around in space, you might be, you might be gesturing to a room or gesturing to something pretty basic. Might not even gesture to the actual item, but you might be gesturing in a direction like, hey, let's go find so-and-so, and then we're going to point. If you've ever taught, and some of you have, taught hide and seek or any kind of games like that, you're not going to want to necessarily point directly to where someone's hiding, but you want to give them some hints. That gesture is going to be pretty handy right there. Of course. Positional prompt. Now this one is it's more apparent right now. So instead of sort of pulling it in after I give the direction, I'm setting her up earlier. I'm putting the orange pen, which is the target on this trial, if we're talking about trials, I'm putting the orange one closer to her. That's the cue that she needs to realize, oh, the one that's closest to me, that looks different, that must be the one. That's where you also, if you're doing a dressing routine, you put all the clothes out on the bed or on the dresser, whatever furniture you have. You put them somewhere where it's kind of a clear positional prompt that, hey, this is different. This is probably the stuff I need to use. And some of our students love, they like picking up their own clothes, and that's could be a whole nother step. We'll talk about that in a second, because I'll talk about that with the task analysis. But if you're targeting them just getting dressed, you might put those new clothes out there. You might make that, you want to make it clear to them that that's what's going on, that's the materials they should be working with. Because if you say get dressed, sometimes our students might misinterpret that and think that they need to go into the closet or the dresser and find new clothes. So you want, or sometimes our students will sort of get confused too and go to the hamper because they know, hey, I know there's clothes there. The positional prompt's going to give you that bridge, so you can put them out there, especially when you know that things are moving in the right direction toward the independence. So I'll talk about getting dressed in a second here. Of course, it's going to play again. Okay, so I want to look at the prompt hierarchy again after now. Probably going to go back and forth on the prompt hierarchy again, but if you notice, we're sort of just pulling ourselves back, pulling ourselves out of it. We're doing the hand over hand, then we're doing the kind of a guide, then we're doing demonstrating it, pointing to it, and then sort of positioning it. So we're not even really getting in there. We're sort of setting it up almost ahead of time. And then we have independence. And that brings us to fading, which is the systematic process of moving down the ladder toward the less intrusive prompts and independence. That's called fading. When you take your prompts and you start with hand over hand, or maybe sometimes you can just start with a model or a gesture. When you start moving down this ladder, I'm going to call it a ladder, you start moving down that ladder, that's called fading. You're fading your prompts. So when the teaching a new skill, more intrusive prompts are often required, but as the learner gains independence during the steps of the task, the prompts are slowly faded down the ladder toward independence, like I said before. And essentially, we're fading ourselves out of the activity. So whatever it might be, if it's dressing, if it, matching is a little bit different. If you're working on, identifying letters and things, that might not be something you can really fade yourself out completely. But if you're doing, especially for those self-help tasks, hygiene tasks, daily living, even, I was just in an IEP this morning, and we were talking about the student is actually independent about, he retrieves his own food from the fridge, puts it in the microwave and heats it up. Mom and dad are not involved in that one, which is really great, but it's also, there might be some little, I've had a few students that will maybe put the microwave on a lot longer than it needs to be, or they might put things in the microwave that shouldn't go in the microwave, whether that's the food item or the container that it's in, or silverware. But essentially what we're doing is we're going from being a helper. We're starting from, trying to teach this new task, this new activity, this new skill. We're being the helper. We are helping everything. And that's where that hand over hand goes. Even the partial physical, you're really involved. And then we're just a guide. We're guiding them through it, like pointing, moving stuff around a little bit, maybe, modeling a little bit. And then to where we're just sort of an observer, to where we're there as a support. We might give them the instruction, hey, time to brush your teeth. And then we're just sort of there at the door, kind of watching, making sure there's no mistakes. We can always pop back in when we think about this, and we'll talk about this in a couple of slides. It might be completely independent, but if it's toothbrushing, or there might be a new toothpaste dispenser, and you might need to pop back in. If your student has all those skills mastered, we'll talk about that, but all those skills mastered, that whole thing is great, solid, 100%. But maybe it's a new bathroom, maybe it's a new toothbrush, maybe it's a new, a lot of, some of our students like the mechanical toothbrushes. Maybe it's a new button, a new on and off. Maybe it's a new, I know some of the toothpaste dispensers don't look the same. I'm just using toothpaste as an example, but it could be the issue with clothing too. If your student has mastered putting on shorts and a t-shirt, and suddenly they need to put on something that has buttons or clips or zippers, you might need to pop back in there. And what I was mentioning on this slide is that, we might be able to fade ourselves out to be just sort of an observer, like a little silent helper. A lot of times we'll talk about PECs. In PECs, you might have heard of silent prompter. We're there just to sort of support. We're not there to be involved. But you might have to pop yourself back in if you are teaching something where the materials have changed or the expectations have changed. We've talked about that in some of the other videos, what you're going to expect from, when you're teaching a 5-year-old to brush their teeth to a 15-year-old, what's okay for a 5-year-old, sort of maybe missing some spots, maybe really hitting the front teeth really well. That's appropriate for a 5-year-old, but once you get older and there's an expectation of more cleaning and more independence, you might need to give them more support over time to teach them all the quadrants, every part of the mouth, proper, a lot of our students either are trying to avoid toothpaste or have too much. So there's all sorts of things you might have to pop yourself in and get out. And so a little bit there. But what we really want to do is go from that helper to the guide to an observer, and finally not being involved at all. We're just maybe saying, hey, time to go to bed, and they can do that entire routine, whether it's brushing the teeth, getting on jammies, whatever their tasks are for their bedtime, they can do all those things. So let's look at the next one. And then so I've talked about a lot of examples, but when do you use prompts and fading? Short answer is almost any time. I mean, I've sort of already given probably 20 examples of different activities you could use prompting and fading in, but they can be used across almost everything. So I'm listed a few here, some toothbrushing, letter identification, communication skills. There's a couple considerations that I want to mention here. And one is your learner's history and tolerance of prompting methods. Now, I'm going to just say it and I'll expand on it a little bit. But for instance, some learners do not react well to physical hand-over-hand prompts. So you might need to use other prompts. I know that we've had a few students on campus that it's going to cause a behavior and it's going to cause them, it's going to put them under a state of duress. They're going to be, fight or flight response if you try to go hand over hand. So when we're prompting that student, and that's something we all need to be aware of, and you should be aware of, everyone on the team should be aware of. If you have a student that doesn't tolerate physical prompts, you need to find another way. And that gets challenging. That's where you can, partial physical might work for some things, but some things you might actually have to just really turn you really should sort of get some help on that one, because once if we have to take certain prompts out, it gets a little challenging. So, ask your teacher, ask me. If you have an in-home ABA provider, I always mention that on these videos, and I will mention it at the end again. Work with them to see what prompts can you use. And you might have to do, almost make your own, and I've done this before, make a personalized prompt hierarchy for your student, for your child, because okay, we can't use these ones. I was just thinking there's another example when I was working on this, is some of our students that have vision issues or have attending issues, that they're not cueing into even the gesture. You have to sort of work around that. Maybe the positional prompt, they're not paying attention to the positional prompt. You might have to make things those prompts, some of those visuals, you might have to make them a little bit bigger. Whether it's, moving things around, clearing the space out so those positional prompts will work, because you can't have a really busy area and just put something right in the middle, because it's going to get lost, especially with our students that have sort of visual field issues. Another consideration is the task itself. So some prompts are not appropriate for certain tasks. The example I gave here is personal hygiene tasks for teenagers and young adults. I would say specifically for females who have gone through puberty, there are some hygiene tasks that you just can't use certain prompts. It's not appropriate. I'm a male, so I can't model prompt some of these things. On the reverse, for young men, for cleaning young men's private areas, you can't use a model prompt for that. That's just not appropriate. And hand over hand, and there's so many different things. So you have to really be creative about it. Again, I would reference, talk to your ABA in-home provider, ask your teacher, and we can troubleshoot these things. And then there's one that I didn't mention here, but I was trying to give more examples and sort of a breadth of information here. Is another one is flossing. There's certain tasks that you can't do. If you're going to do hand over hand to do flossing, that might work for the front teeth, but that's a lot of hands, a lot of fingers, depending on the size of your hands and the student's hands, the learner's hands. You can't have 4 sets of hands or 4 sets of fingers in your mouth. You certainly can't do the molars. So you might have to use something else. I know, use the little flossing sticks, use a water flosser if the student can tolerate it. You might have to change what you use, change the materials to allow you to give different prompts. So let's talk about, let's move on a little bit to talk about sort of one of the things we use, one of the applications we use for prompting and fading, and that's a task analysis. Again, I know that we've had a task analysis. There's a video on task analysis somewhere around here on the Odyssey website, the YouTube channel. Let's go into a little bit. I know I have it back then, but let's talk about it a little bit. I'm going to give a few examples as well. Okay. So task analysis is when we're teaching skills that require multiple steps that must be done in a specific order. So washing hands, brushing teeth, getting dressed. Another one is tying shoes. That has to be done in a specific order. We often break these tasks into the individual component steps and target these steps one at a time. So this breakdown is called task analysis. We'll look at it in a second. The overall goal of teaching using a task analysis is to teach a pattern of behaviors, often called a behavior chain, to complete a given task from beginning to end, ensuring that the steps are performed in the correct order. Now, if we go back to washing hands, well, we can pick any of these. I'm I'm going to pick brushing teeth. You have to sort of do it in the right order. There's some steps that you can kind of move around a little bit. Do you need to put water on the toothbrush before the toothpaste or after the toothpaste is applied? Judgment call on that one. But you need to put the toothpaste on before you brush the teeth. That part's required. And so we want to make sure when we're teaching these longer tasks that it's in the right order. Getting dressed is the one I'm going to use an example. Let's just move to it. So I made this really quick task analysis, really quick. The thing about this one is, this is for a student, I'm going to sort of preface this, but this is a student or a learner who already has a bunch of these steps. They can take their clothes off, they can remove their shoes, they can, and they can put their clothes back on. This is now putting all the steps together. You're taking little chunks, and some of these, in the grand scheme of things, where this student, this fake student, pretend student that I'm using as an example, we might have had a task analysis for, we certainly probably would have had one for putting on pants, putting on socks, putting on shirt, putting on underwear. I didn't include putting on shoes. I have removing shoes, but not putting shoes back on. All of these might have had their own task analysis, especially those that are going to involve more steps. And I think a lot of families have worked on putting a shirt on, putting pants on, making sure that the feet go in one pant leg, not two in one, making sure that all is fitting. Those are all probably task analysis like this that would have been for each of those individual steps. I wanted to use this one because it's a lot of steps and they have to be done in a certain order. So when this one, if your student's having a lot of trouble with those first few steps, so that's basically collecting the clean shirt, pants, socks, everything, that might be a positional prompt. You might take all of those out and put them on the bed right now, because we're not going to worry about those just yet, the first few steps. But we're going to be watching those the last few steps. And the big thing here is, when you take your clothes off, you've got to put them away in a certain spot. You want to gather your new clothes, take off the old clothes, put them away in the hamper or wherever, if there's a bin. It really can be personalized to whatever. But what we really want to look at is that you can't take your underwear off before you take your pants off. It's pretty clear. Physically you can't do it. So we're going to teach the student to do it in a certain way. Now, this is one way. And I always, I used to work in home programs, and I considered that I want to teach our student one way, one solid, appropriate way. And then if they find little tricks, like if our student wants to take their underwear and pants off at the same time, more power to them. That works. It's functionally appropriate for them to do that. It doesn't destroy anything. It doesn't hurt anyone's feelings. It's just a little quicker. That might be appropriate, but you still can't put your pants on before your underwear. So there's certain things you can kind of maybe cheat a little bit, skip a couple steps, but pretty much, taking, once we get past, I didn't number these, but when you get past down to, I guess, as you're taking clothes off, you have to make sure you're not going to you can't take, as I said, you can't take your underwear off before your pants. You can take your socks off before your pants. You can, that order, again, we're giving them one way. And really this task analysis is not necessarily even really for the student. It's for us. It's for the instructors, for the people who are teaching, for the teachers, because this gives us an idea of what's going on and where they need the help. So let's get to that actually. So I filled this out. This is all fake data. The student doesn't exist. This is what a data sheet might look like. This is if we were, doing an in-home program, it might look like this. I'll sort of go over. G is gesture, I is independent, POS is positional, PH is physical. I don't think I even included any partial physical. I usually notate that as a PP or PH. It might be, everyone, and people have different prompts there. I didn't use any model prompts either on my fake data sheet, but what you can see is it's a mess. It's all over the place. There's just, and to someone who hasn't done this for years, it just looks like a, crazy amount of letters and things just tossed up on there. And it pretty much is. But what we're going to look at, and I kind of mentioned it on there, is we're going to just target that last step. And this is called backward chaining. So we're not going to really worry about the clean shirt, picking up the clean shirt, all those first few steps, we're not going to really care. There are some independence in there, and it's great to see that. But what we're really going to be doing is trying to fade our prompts on that last step. Because if he or she can put on a clean shirt independently at the end of this task, then we know that they've mastered that step. And so what I'm showing is maybe we need to use a positional prompt. Maybe we need to move it a little bit closer. I can't predict in my mind or picture in my mind what that might look like, but we have positional prompts, which are pretty much close to that independence. Well, we fade that prompt out. We take that positional prompt out. Now the student's independent. So they're independent on Wednesday. They're independent on Wednesday and Thursday on putting on the clean shirt. And they only use Monday, Tuesday, they still need those prompts, but we were able to fade them out. Again, fading, we're moving down that ladder to the clean shirt independent on Wednesday and Thursday. And then by some miracle, we give some positional prompts for the clean pants. We can move now, they're independent on that one. So now we're able to move in a target step now for Saturday, Sunday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think my camera, my picture is probably covering that, but those last two columns are both the gestures now. So, what we want this to kind of look like is we want some independence in there, but we want it to see that progression from, we might be giving physical prompts, partial physical prompts, model prompts, gesture prompts, and over the course of days or weeks or even months for some of our learners who take a while to acquire some of these skills, especially the more complex skills, we want to see that progress. Now, when we're looking at this too, is that, again, our fake student, Joe Q student or Susie Q student, you notice that there's a bunch, like the place dirty pants in the hamper, a lot of independence there. We're really close. Placing socks on the bed, pretty close, a lot of independence there. Pick up the clean pants, a lot of independence there. So there's a lot of steps that you're not gonna have to go from physical. Now, again, with my fake data here, it looks like placing the dirty underwear in the hamper, there was a physical prompt on Tuesday, physical prompt on Thursday. So they do need more help. But if you're doing this, and if you're doing, do a backward chain where you're just targeting the last not unmastered or non-independent step, we're going to get there. We're going to get there over time. And you might have chunks of steps in here that might be independent. They might be really good about, I would presume some of our students are going to pick up on, when they remove maybe not the shoes are a little harder, but maybe when they remove the shirt, they put in the hamper. So you might see all those remove steps, the shirt, the pants, the socks, the underwear, they might master those. But they still might need some prompts, a gesture, a positional to get started on some of those, especially the order. Although, again, some of our students are going to pick up on it. When you're targeting this task, the student probably has most of these steps fairly mastered. It's just a matter of putting them in the right order. So that might be why, that could be why you wouldn't necessarily see too many physical prompts here unless one of these steps is completely new. Like a lot of our students just pull shoes off and just toss them. You might have to teach that one a little bit more. But this is what it might look like. And I'm not expecting anyone to do this every day. If you have an in-home program, they might be expecting you to collect data every day on what's happening. But in that case, I don't know that you'd be watching my video because I think you're getting that assistance from an in-home program. But what we are looking at is we want to see that progression. So over time, that sort of green line that I have is going to be ticking up and up and up to where those bottom steps are all independent, to where eventually, even when we're giving all these prompts, the student's learning these steps in order. Again, I'm going to kind of say, just reference back to, there's no V's on here for vocal prompts. There's no vocal prompts. The only vocal that you should be giving is at the very beginning, which is time to change your clothes. That's that first initial instruction. So everything after that is pretty much going to be just prompting using those silent prompts. So that was a really quick review. I've tried to make these, some of them are 40 plus minutes, and I know that's a lot. But I think combining this with the older videos that I made about the prompts, I just want to sort of give a quicker review on the prompt hierarchy and fading and the task analysis. This can get a lot more complex. There's so many different steps and so many different ways, and and troubleshooting, but I just wanted to put this one out there. So again, prompt hierarchy, remember we want to move toward independence, down that ladder from the most intrusive to the least intrusive. And that process is fading. You're fading your prompts out, you're fading yourself out of that to where you're just kind of there giving the instruction, and then you can sort of be an observer, and then finally to where they're just completely independent. And then that task analysis, always consider, you know, I know it seems like a lot of work, but it also helps you, and especially if there's multiple caregivers, that having that task analysis, if we'll just kind of go back to it, having this is going to be a lot easier for everyone, because maybe everyone has, you know, depending on work schedules, if you're there on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or you're there Tuesday, Thursday, or you're doing the morning and they're doing the afternoon, you know, seeing this so everyone knows where they're at, that, oh, I'm giving positional prompts during that one, or they're independent on this step, where they're not independent here. What can we do to bring the student to where the expectations are similar across everything? So as always, I always end or sometimes begin with this: reach out to your teacher, reach out to me. And if you do have an in-home ABA program or support system, please use them as a resource. There are tons, and I was going to put some on the description. There are tons of videos of prompting and fading. I want to make this one specifically for some of our students, but there are resources out there. So please reach out if you need anything, and I will see you next time. Thanks.